This isn't some story I heard from a friend of a friend. This happened to me. Every single word of it is the truth. And it's a truth I had to carve out of a mountain of lies with my own 2 hands. The clinking of my champagne flute against the microphone was the only sound in the opulent private dining room of San Francisco's Fairmont Hotel. 80 pairs of eyes were fixed on me, shimmering in the candlelight. My fiancé, Marcus, sat at the head of the table, his handsome face glowing with pride, his hand resting possessively on my chair. He thought this was my toast to him, a loving tribute at our rehearsal dinner. He was wrong. I looked at him, held up the sleek, black phone that wasn't his, and said, "Before we toast to my future with Marcus, I'd like to read a few other vows he's made recently. To a woman named Chloe, and another named Sasha. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel, tell us where you're from, and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows." Our story began, as so many San Francisco stories do, in the shadow of the tech boom. I was Clara, an architect with a small but growing firm, a woman who believed in blueprints and solid foundations. He was Marcus Thorne, the charismatic founder of a fintech startup called Veritas Financial, a name that was, in retrospect, a cosmic joke. We met at a charity gala at the De Young Museum. He was magnetic, with a smile that could disarm armies, and a way of listening that made you feel like you were the only person in the universe. He talked about integrity, about building systems people could trust. He loved that I was an architect. "We're both builders, Clara," he'd said on our first date, his hand covering mine across the table at a tiny Michelin-starred restaurant in Hayes Valley. "You build with steel and glass. I build with code and capital. But both require a solid foundation of trust." For 3 years, I believed we were building a cathedral. Our life was a carefully curated collection of perfect moments. Weekend trips to Napa, cozy nights in his stunning Pacific Heights apartment with its sweeping views of the Golden Gate Bridge, introductions to his influential parents who lived in a sprawling estate in Marin County. His mother, Eleanor, was terrifyingly elegant, a woman who wore her pearls like armor. His father, Harrison, was a titan of old money finance, a man who spoke in quiet pronouncements and clearly adored his only son. They approved of me. I was stable, I had a respectable career, and I was, in their eyes, a suitable partner for the Thorne dynasty. The proposal was breathtaking. He chartered a private yacht for a sunset cruise around the bay. As the sky bled into orange and purple behind Alcatraz, he got down on one knee. The diamond was enormous, a flawless emerald cut that felt impossibly heavy on my finger. I cried. I said yes. Of course I said yes. I was in love with the blueprint he'd shown me, a future of shared dreams and mutual respect. I didn't know the foundation was nothing but sand. The wedding planning began immediately. Eleanor took the helm with the efficiency of a corporate CEO, booking the Grace Cathedral for the ceremony and the Fairmont's Grand Ballroom for the reception. My opinion was requested but rarely required. It was a Thorne wedding, and I was simply the starring guest. I let it happen, convincing myself that this was just how families like his operated. Marcus was busy, always busy. Veritas was in the middle of a massive Series C funding round. He was courting a huge investor, a man named Julian Croft, who was famously shrewd. The late nights, the frantic calls, the weekend trips to meet with potential backers. I accepted it all as part of his ambition, part of the life I was choosing. I supported him, making sure he ate, managing our social calendar, being the calm port in his high-stakes storm. The first crack in the foundation appeared 3 months before the wedding. It was a Tuesday. Marcus had just gotten home from the gym, a grueling session with his personal trainer. He threw his duffel bag onto the cream-colored chaise lounge in our bedroom. He was distracted, already on his phone, talking to his lawyer about due diligence documents for the funding round. As he walked into the bathroom, still talking, the overstuffed duffel bag tipped over, spilling its contents onto the floor. A protein shaker, used workout clothes, a towel, his wallet, and a second phone. It wasn't like his regular phone, the latest iPhone that was practically an extension of his hand. This one was a slim, nondescript black Android device. It lay there on the Persian rug, dark and silent. A foreign object in the familiar landscape of our life. My heart did a strange, stuttering beat. Why would he have a second phone? He was the head of a tech company. It wasn't unheard of. A work phone for security, maybe? But he'd never mentioned it. He was a man who told me about every tedious software update to his car. Not mentioning a whole separate phone felt wrong. He came out of the bathroom, laughing at something his lawyer said, and saw the mess on the floor. His eyes darted from his spilled things to my face, and for a split second I saw it. A flicker of pure animal panic. It was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by his usual charming smile. "Oops," he said, scooping everything up. He grabbed the black phone with a little too much speed, his movements just a fraction too sharp. "What's that?" I asked, keeping my voice light, casual. He barely glanced at it, already stuffing it back in the bag. "Oh, this thing? It's just a burner for work. We're testing a new secure messaging app for the platform. Super boring, top-secret stuff." He winked. "Can't have our competitors knowing what we're building." It sounded plausible. It sounded exactly like something a tech CEO would say. But that flash of panic in his eyes. I'd seen it. It was a glitch in the code, a hairline fracture in the facade. For the next few weeks, I tried to forget it. I told myself I was being paranoid. The wedding stress, the pressure, it was getting to me. I was an architect. I trusted structure. I trusted the man I was about to marry. But the image of that black phone was lodged in my mind, a dark little splinter I couldn't tweeze out. The suspicion began to fester, coloring everything. I started noticing things I'd previously ignored. The way he angled his main phone away from me when he was texting. The vague answers about his networking dinners that stretched past midnight. A credit card statement had a charge for a 2-night stay at the Post Ranch in Big Sur, a place we'd always dreamed of going together. When I asked him about it, he was so smooth, so convincing. "Oh, that. I booked it as a surprise for our honeymoon, baby. A pre-honeymoon treat. But the dates didn't work out, so I had to cancel. The charge must be a pre-authorization that hasn't dropped off yet." He'd pulled me into his lap, kissed my forehead, and called me his little detective. I felt foolish, ashamed of my doubt. I wanted to believe him so badly that I did. But the splinter was still there. And it was starting to get infected. The discovery came on a Thursday night, 10 days before the wedding. He was in New York, a last-minute trip to meet with Julian Croft. "Closing the deal, Clara," he'd said, his voice buzzing with excitement over the phone. "This is it. The big one. When I get back, I'm all yours. We'll get married, and then we'll be on a beach in Bora Bora." He'd forgotten his gym bag. In his rush to pack for New York, he'd left it by the front door. I saw it when I got home from a long day on site at a new construction project in Soma. And I knew with a sudden chilling certainty that the second phone was inside. My hands were trembling as I unzipped the bag. There it was, nestled in a side pocket, tucked beneath a pair of running shoes. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic, trapped bird. This was it. This was the moment where I could either zip the bag back up, pretend I'd seen nothing, and walk down the aisle into a life built on a lie, or I could open it and know the truth, whatever it was. I took the phone into my study, a room filled with my blueprints, my designs, my life's work built on precision and facts. The phone was locked, of course. A 6-digit passcode. I took a deep breath, my architectural mind clicking into gear, searching for patterns, for logic. What would Marcus, a man of profound ego and surprising laziness, use as a password? Not our anniversary. Too sentimental. Not his mother's birthday. Too complicated. I tried his birthday. 1-1-0-8-8-8. Nothing. I tried Veritas's founding date. Nothing. I tried a dozen other combinations, my panic rising with each failed attempt. The phone taunted me. Try again in 1 minute. I sat there, staring at the black screen, the reflection of my own pale, terrified face staring back at me. What was the one thing he loved most in the world? The one thing he saw as a pure extension of his own magnificence? I thought of his stupidly expensive purebred golden retriever, a dog he'd named Chairman. He was insufferably proud of that dog. I typed in the dog's birthday, which he had once drunkenly declared a corporate holiday. 0-4-2-5-1-9. The phone unlocked. For a moment, I just stared, my breath caught in my throat. Then, with a shaking finger, I tapped on the green message icon. There were 3 main threads at the top. Sasha. Chloe. The wolf pack. My blood ran cold. I opened Sasha's first. The most recent message from her was time-stamped from that afternoon. Can't wait for you to get back from New York. The little architect's bachelorette is this weekend, right? Perfect time for us to have the apartment to ourselves. Winky face. The room started to tilt. My apartment. Our apartment. I scrolled up. And up. And up. It was a year's worth of a life I knew nothing about. Photos of them in Big Sur, at the Post Ranch Inn. The very same weekend, he was supposedly on a solo meditation retreat to clear his head before the funding round. There were pictures of her wearing my jewelry, a vintage locket my grandmother had given me. He'd told me it was at the jeweler's being cleaned. There were texts from him to her, brutal, casual, cruel. Clara's getting suspicious. Had to spin some crap about a honeymoon surprise. She bought it. So trusting it's almost boring. Yeah, the wedding planning is a nightmare. My mother is a steamroller. But just gotta get through it. The merger will be complete soon, lol. The merger. He was calling our marriage a merger. I felt a wave of nausea so powerful I had to grip the edge of my desk. My hands were numb, my ears were ringing. This wasn't a man having a sordid affair. This was a sociopath running a game. I was a pawn. A piece of his grand design. I clicked on Chloe's thread. She was a lawyer at the firm that represented Veritas. Their messages were more transactional, colder, but just as damning. They talked about me in the third person, like I was a household appliance he was complaining about. The architect is freaking out about the seating chart. Kill me now. And then I saw it. The message that made my heart stop beating altogether. It was from Marcus to Chloe. Julian Croft is getting skittish about the Q3 revenue projections. They look weak. We need to cook the books, just slightly. A little creative accounting to push the deal over the line before the wedding. Once his signature is on the paper, it's his problem, not mine. Can you make it happen? Chloe's reply. That's securities fraud, Marcus. Marcus's reply. It's only fraud if we get caught. Get it done. I'll make it worth your while. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was a criminal. He was planning to defraud his key investor, a man his own father respected, a man who was coming to our wedding. The scale of his deception was breathtaking. It was a skyscraper built on a foundation of lies, and I was living in the penthouse, oblivious to the rot in the basement. Finally, I opened the wolf pack. It was a group chat with his best man, Kevin, and 2 other groomsmen. It was a cesspool, a running commentary on his conquests, filled with misogynistic jokes and locker room bragging. They all knew. They all knew about Sasha and Chloe and God knows who else. They knew he was playing me. There were screenshots of my texts to him, with him adding captions like, Stage 5 Clinger Alert, followed by laughing emojis from his friends. They mocked my career, my family, my laugh. Every intimate detail I had shared with him, he had served up to his friends for their amusement. I read for hours. I sat in my beautiful study, surrounded by the evidence of my own orderly, well-planned life, and watched it all burn down in the glow of a secret screen. The grief came first, a tidal wave of it, so immense it felt like it would drown me. I curled up on the floor, the cold wood pressing against my cheek, and I wept. I wept for the man I thought I loved, for the future I thought we had, for the fool I had been. It was a deep, guttural, soul-emptying grief. But as the hours passed and the first gray light of dawn began to creep into the San Francisco sky, something else began to bubble up through the sorrow. It was cold and hard and sharp. It was rage. Pure, undiluted architectural rage. Marcus Thorne didn't deserve my tears. He deserved consequences. He had built a fragile, fraudulent structure, and I, Clara, the architect, was going to be the one to demolish it. I wasn't just going to call off the wedding. I was going to publicly and spectacularly bulldoze his entire life. And I knew the exact time and place to do it. The rehearsal dinner. The next 9 days were the performance of my life. When Marcus returned from New York, flush with success after apparently closing the deal with Julian Croft, I was the perfect image of the loving, excited fiancé. I greeted him at the airport with a kiss, my stomach churning with revulsion. I listened to him gloat about his business acumen, nodding and smiling, my mind a cold, whirring machine, processing his lies and filing them away. He was so arrogant, so confident in his deception, that he didn't notice the change in me. He didn't see that the light in my eyes had been replaced by the glint of polished steel. I became a meticulous demolition expert. Every night, after he fell asleep, I would take the second phone and continue my work. I used a software to download and back up every single message, every photo, every call log. I created a password-protected, encrypted file on a thumb drive, which I kept in a safe deposit box at my bank. I created a second backup on a cloud server he would never know about. I was creating my own set of blueprints, the blueprints of his downfall. I studied the messages like an engineer studying stress points in a building. I categorized them: cruelty, infidelity, financial fraud, mockery. I identified the key players. Sasha, of course. Chloe, the lawyer. Kevin, the best man. And the most important target, Julian Croft, the investor. His presence at the rehearsal dinner was crucial, and I knew Marcus would have him there. It would be the ultimate power move for him, parading his new fiancée and his new funding in front of his family and friends on the same weekend. 2 days before the dinner, I made a quiet visit to the best family law attorney in the city. I laid out the basics without revealing my full plan. I needed to know how to protect myself. We moved my substantial savings and the inheritance from my grandmother out of our joint accounts and into a new private trust account. The lease on our Pacific Heights apartment was, thankfully, solely in my name from before he moved in. I had the locks changed while he was at a board meeting, which I knew from the second phone was actually a final celebratory lunch with Chloe. When he came home and his key didn't work, I played dumb, blaming a faulty lock and calling a 24-hour locksmith, all while the new keys sat safely in my purse. I also did something else. I curated the evidence. I selected the most damning, most humiliating, most legally catastrophic text messages. I typed them out one by one and had them printed on small, elegant ivory cards, the same cardstock Eleanor had chosen for the dinner menus. I chose about 20 of them, a greatest hits collection of his depravity. The night of the rehearsal dinner, I felt a strange, almost zen-like calm. As I got dressed, I looked at myself in the mirror. I was wearing a stunning blood-red dress. A power color. The engagement ring felt like a shackle on my finger, and I knew it would be the last time I ever wore it. Marcus came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. He kissed my neck, his reflection smiling in the mirror. "You look breathtaking, Clara," he whispered. "Tonight is for us. The start of everything." "The start of everything," I repeated, my voice even, my eyes meeting my own reflection. I saw the woman I was, and the woman I was about to become. The private dining room at the Fairmont was a vision of Eleanor Thorne's impeccable, suffocating taste. Roses and peonies overflowed from silver vases. The lighting was low and intimate. The guest list was a curated collection of Marcus's universe. His parents, Harrison and Eleanor, at the head of the table, his sycophantic wolf pack. His business partners, and the guest of honor, Julian Croft, a formidable-looking man with silver hair and watchful eyes. My family was there too, my parents and my sister, looking happy and proud, completely unaware of the bomb I was about to detonate. Dinner was a blur of polite conversation and expensive wine. I moved through it like a ghost, smiling, laughing at jokes, letting Marcus hold my hand. I could feel his arrogance radiating off him. He was king of his castle, everything perfectly in its place. He'd done it. He'd secured the money, he'd secured the wife. He thought he was invincible. The toasts began. My father gave a sweet, emotional speech that made my heart ache. Then Harrison Thorne, Marcus's father, stood up. He spoke of legacy, of honor, of the integrity that the Thorne name represented. "My son has not only found a wonderful partner in Clara," he said, his voice resonating with authority, "but he has also just secured the future of his company with a partner who values integrity as much as we do." A toast to Marcus and Julian Croft. To men of honor. Everyone applauded. Julian Croft gave a gracious nod. Marcus beamed, soaking in the praise. Then it was his best man, Kevin's turn. He gave a smarmy, joke-filled speech, full of inside references that I now understood were veiled digs at me. He ended by saying, "Marcus finally found a girl he couldn't hack. He had to lock her down the old-fashioned way." To the happy couple, the wolf pack, hooped and hollered. Finally, Marcus tapped his glass. "And now a few words from the most important person in my life. My beautiful fiancé, my partner, my Clara." He looked at me with those eyes I had once found so sincere. I stood up, the red dress feeling like armor. I picked up my champagne flute and the small stack of ivory cards I had placed beside my plate. I walked to the front of the room, my heels clicking softly on the polished floor. I smiled, a wide, serene smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Thank you, everyone, for being here," I began, my voice clear and steady. The room was silent. This is such a special night. A night for celebrating new beginnings, and for honoring the truth. And in that spirit, I want to share something truly special. Marcus is such a gifted writer. So poetic. I was going through his things the other day and I found some of his other vows. Vows of a sort. And I thought tonight would be the perfect time to share them. A ripple of confusion went through the room. Marcus's smile tightened just a fraction. He had no idea. The sheer scale of his arrogance had made him blind. I looked down at the first card. "This one is a little love note he sent just last Tuesday. To a woman named Sasha." I saw a flicker of recognition in the eyes of one of the bridesmaids. Sasha was her best friend from college. He wrote, "Counting the seconds until this whole wedding charade is over. Then it's just you and me, baby. And the Thorne Family Trust Fund." A collective gasp went through the room. Eleanor Thorne's hand flew to her pearls. Harrison's face became a mask of stone. Marcus was starting to turn pale. I moved to the next card without missing a beat. He has such a way with compliments. He sent this one to his best man, Kevin. I looked directly at Kevin, whose face had gone chalk white. Clara's on another one of her carb-free kicks for the wedding dress. Thank God. Another £5 and I'd have to roll her down the aisle. My own sister choked back a sob. The room was deathly quiet now, the only sound my calm, measured voice. Marcus started to rise from his seat, his face a thundercloud of fury. Clara, what the hell do you think you're doing? Stop this. I'm just getting to the best part, I said, holding his gaze. I turned my attention to a woman sitting near the middle of the table. Chloe, you're the lawyer for Veritas, aren't you? You must appreciate Marcus's attention to detail. He sent this to you about 3 weeks ago. I read slowly, enunciating every word. Julian Croft is getting skittish about the Q3 revenue projections. They look weak. We need to cook the books just slightly. A little creative accounting to push the deal over the line before the wedding. Once his signature is on the paper, it's his problem, not mine. Every eye in the room swiveled to Julian Croft. The man's face was unreadable, but he slowly, deliberately, placed his napkin on the table. He didn't look at Marcus. He looked at me. I held up the last card. And this, I think, is my favorite. This is a message from Marcus to the Wolfpack group chat, sent the morning after he proposed to me. I let the silence hang in the air for a moment. The merger is official. Lock down the architect. Her family has quiet money, and her career gives me the perfect respectable front. Operation Trojan Horse is a go. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of a life imploding. Harrison Thorne looked at his son with a mixture of horror and disgust that I had never seen before. Eleanor looked like she was about to faint. I placed the stack of ivory cards gently on the table in front of Marcus's father. These are just a few highlights, I said, my voice soft now. There are hundreds more. Photos, call logs, financial documents. My lawyer has a full copy. I'm sure the SEC and Mr. Croft's legal team will find them very interesting. I looked at Marcus. The handsome, charismatic man I was supposed to marry was gone. In his place was a cornered, terrified boy. His face was blotchy, his eyes wild with panic and hate. For the first time, everyone in the room was seeing the real man behind the mask. The blueprint of his true self. I slipped the diamond ring off my finger. It felt wonderfully light. I placed it on top of the stack of cards. The wedding, I announced to the stunned room, is off. But please enjoy the salmon. Then I turned, and without looking back, I walked out of that room. I walked past the shocked faces, past the wreckage of a life that was never really mine, and out into the cool San Francisco night. And for the first time in a very long time, I was smiling. The aftermath was exactly what you'd expect. Julian Croft's lawyers filed a lawsuit the very next morning, citing fraud and misrepresentation. The SEC launched a full investigation into Veritas Financial. The company imploded within a month. Harrison Thorne, A man whose entire identity was built on his reputation for integrity, publicly disavowed his son and used his considerable resources to assist in the investigation, determined to salvage what was left of the family name. Marcus was ruined, not just financially but socially. His wolf pack scattered, wanting nothing to do with the fallout. Sasha and Chloe disappeared, their own reputations tarnished by association. I never spoke to him again. I didn't need to. I had said everything I needed to say in that dining room. My family rallied around me, their pride in me eclipsing their initial shock. I sold the apartment, moved my firm to a new, brighter office in the Mission District, and poured my energy into my work, into building things that were real, with strong foundations and honest designs. Sometimes late at night when I'm sketching a new building, I think about that rehearsal dinner. I don't feel anger or sadness anymore. I just feel a quiet sense of balance, of a structure that was unsound being brought down to make way for something new. He built his empire on lies, and I just showed everyone the blueprint. The end.